So I decided to do today's review of the RX 6600 XT a little bit later than the launch date. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to see the street pricing of these cards, where AMD told me that they were going to come in from 379 USD, or if you're in Australia, from 589 Aussie dollars. But upon speaking to some people who are getting these products in the shelves, they're telling me in Australia you can expect this thing to come in at around about 750 Aussie dollars. And then if you're in the United States, I'm guessing that you're probably going to expect to pay around 500 USD plus. And there's a few reasons for this as well. So let's get all those gaming benchmark numbers out of the way and then talk about everything that the 6600 XT is and isn't. So those gaming benchmark numbers aside, it's going to be very hard to get excited about the 6600 XT, where the performance falls pretty much similar to that of an RTX 3060 or a 5700 XT. But of course, as you go up to 4K, the performance does scale off a little bit, and that's because they're using a 128-bit memory bus on this graphics card. Even though you get 8GB of VRAM, it does start to scale off at higher resolutions. So I wouldn't particularly recommend this card for 4K gaming, but that being said, at 1080p and also 1440p, it does give out an okay experience, considering you could get it for 379 USD, or in Australia 589 Aussie dollars, because this is where the biggest problem comes in, and that of course is the mining profitability, where even though the Ethereum mining profitability dropped per the absolute value, well, I was hoping the value of Ethereum as a gamer would have stayed the same or come down, coupled with the profitability. That would have really helped out the graphics card prices for gamers. But unfortunately, the mining profitability dropped, but the price of Ethereum went up right around this time. And so that's pretty much left that profitability for everyday 24-hour earnings for miners still pretty much the same. And so what this means with a card like the 6600 XT, at least from the calculations I did here, even after you're paying 10 cents a kilowatt hour, it's still going to earn a miner $2.50 a day USD. And those 32 mega hashes, especially if you're going to undervolt the card, just means that the card is pretty much going to have a price floor when it comes from what miners are prepared to pay versus what gamers are prepared to pay. And we've seen this with the RTX 3060 Ti, for example, with the low hash rate models that have been released on the market versus the normal models, which are selling for higher prices. So what this means is that the miners are always going to be there and they're willing to pay a certain price floor, which I believe is well above that of the gamers, which are already angry that this card is costing 379 USD, or in Australia 589 Aussie dollars. Even though I feel like if these cards hit the market at that price, the miners will soon buy them up with the current profitability levels. Though continuing on that note of pricing, there's obviously going to be a lot of people scratching their head at the 5600 XT, which was a sub $300 card, versus the sub $400 card, the 6600 XT, where the price performance of these cards is pretty much going to level out, which is very bizarre considering this is a generational improvement going to RDNA 2 from the original RDNA. And the scariest thing about this is, ever since I've been looking at graphics cards as an enthusiast, I've never seen a trend like this in the graphics card industry, in that every time we've had a new generational improvement, the price performance has improved from the previous generation. And it's not like a refresh. For example, we had the 600 series to the 700 series from Nvidia back in the GTX days, and then AMD, they had the RX 470 going to the RX 570. Pricing remained relatively the same, even though you got a little bit more performance out of the cards. So technically, even on refresh series, you got better value for money. So then what gives? Why are these cards coming out with higher prices? And people think, well, it's just AMD and Nvidia being greedy. They can simply charge those prices. And it's actually got to do with another factor, a big factor, which we'll go into in this review, why as well, and that is inflation. And I've been talking about this in the last 6 months on the channel. Recently in the FOMC minutes conversations from the Federal Reserve themselves, they've said that inflation is going to be essentially permanently transitory, and that if you had a 25% increase in tech prices, they're going to remain at a 25% increase forever, and then inflation after that is going to be a lot lower than that initial surge of inflation. Which quite simply means that if you had $1 in 2019, it's probably in the tech scene lost about 25% of its purchasing power, unfortunately. So in 2019, if you had $1, then you would need $1.25 in 2021 to get the same amount of tech that you got back in 2019, if that makes any sense. But unfortunately, here is where the worst part of all the pricing comes in, and that is since 2019 to 2021, I would guess that most industries and most people, especially working class people on average, are not earning 25% more money than they were in 2019. And so essentially what we have is a lot of average gamers being priced out of the market due to inflation. And then to compound on that problem, the cryptocurrency miners are adding to the price because they're creating artificially more demand for gaming graphics cards. So at the moment, the gamers are at their worst point in history for especially buying a PC gaming graphics card. So my advice in the last few months has just been simply to wait it out, especially when these cards are coming well above their MSRPs. So hopefully after all that information, you guys are still with me, and we're going to talk about the Red Devil card itself. I'll put up the weight and also the dimensions of the card up on the screen for you, but one thing about this card was itself, if you're looking to get one of these cards, if they come back closer to that MSRP, is that the Red Devil model, I was very impressed with what this had to offer. Not only was the noise and temperatures really well controlled, I was also really impressed with the aesthetic of the card. I quite simply thought the way that they've implemented the LEDs on the back plate, the side, and also the front plate, as well as the lighting up of all the input-output ports. If you guys are into building a bling PC, which let's face it, a lot of people are, this card is going to look phenomenal, especially if you decide to vertically mount it in your build. Though the Red Devil card has two modes, and that is a silent and also a BIOS OC mode. I left it on the BIOS OC mode because the silent mode wasn't even necessary out of the box. We're talking about these fan speeds and temperatures. Out of the box, this card went up to 40% fan speeds, which was whisper quiet, and also did a very good job of keeping temperatures extremely low. And then going up to 60% does increase the noise, but does drop the temperatures more. I would suggest this if you want to overclock the card a little bit more than that of the default spec. Though the 80% and 100% fan speeds, I wouldn't recommend these, as the fan noises got simply ridiculously loud, and the diminishing returns of noise versus temperatures increased heavily when we did this. But speaking of overclocks, I simply wouldn't bother if you were getting this card to overclock it, and in fact I would recommend the opposite, where in my opinion this was easily the most impressive part about the 6600 XT, where I might do a low power consumption build for you guys here on the channel, where when I undervolted this card roughly 100 millivolt, as well as dropped the clock speeds down to just over that of 2000 megahertz, as well as upping the VRAM speeds, I got performance in the Shadow of the Tomb Raider 4K benchmark very similar to that of the default settings. However, the wattage went from roughly 140 watts down to under 80 watts. So quite simply, seeing the wattage numbers for the FPS that you're getting, this card right here is got the best power efficiency that I've seen from any graphics card coming through the studio to date, at least in terms of raw rasterization performance. Though on the flip side, if you're looking to get this card for ray tracing, then I wouldn't bother at this point in time. I thought the ray tracing performance just isn't there for the RX 6000 series in general, the 6600 XT being no different. Though the last thing on overclocking and undervolting was the power limits out of the box, and I don't know if this is limited to the Red Devil 6600 XT or if it's a thing that's going to affect all 6600 XTs, but the power limit out of the default settings did cause some very rare stuttering on games, and I alleviated this, and this is not introduced in today's numbers, where I manually upped the power limit in the Radeon software. So if this is a problem across all 6600 XTs, then you may see either a VBIOS update or a driver update implemented to alleviate this problem. And then the last point to talk about with this card is the inputs and outputs, where you get a HDMI 2.1 as well as 3 DisplayPort outs. And having a metal backplate and front plate really makes this card feel like a high quality item, where I feel like PowerColor are doing a very impressive job with the 6600 XT in the way they've implemented it. Though now it's time to conclude the RX 6600 XT review for you guys. And who is this card going to be for? Well, at its current street pricing, it's not going to be for many gamers, let's put it that way, because as we said earlier in this review, the crypto miners are going to soak these cards up with a price floor that I feel is going to be higher than that of MSRP. And so that's the first problem, and as long as this problem exists, then miners are simply going to be taking away cards that gamers would otherwise purchase and put in a gaming PC. And that's why the whole industry, especially in the new part of the segment, just sucks to be in right now, because of this crypto problem and demand from miners. And at least when it comes to inflation as well, we won't know the true effect of that until the crypto demand goes away and we can get back to some sort of normalcy with graphics cards. So until then, the gamers are essentially getting worse value on these graphics cards, at least at their street pricing. And then only once we get back to that phase can I give you an accurate recommendation of if 379 USD is a good deal or not in 2021. But hey, that's why I'm hoping the crypto rug pull comes sooner than later. And if you guys enjoyed today's review, then be sure to hit that like button for us. Also, let us know in the comments section below what you think of the 6600 XT launch. I just think it's another lackluster GPU launch in 2021 due to the crypto miners pretty much raising the prices on the street pricing that's out there in the market. Though I love reading your thoughts and opinions as always, just like this question of the day here, which comes from Graphics Card, and they ask, can you do a video on installing this OS on unsupported hardware? And they're talking about Windows 11, where we did an optimization guide yesterday, but we've also already installed Windows 11 on unsupported hardware. And the way you do it is you get a Windows 10 USB install, and then you put the Windows 11.esd file on there, or the WIM file, and then you can get around that. I've also done a video on that. I'll put the link up here for you. Though with that aside, I'm going to get on out of here, and if you've enjoyed this Tech Yes content you want to see it the moment it drops, then be sure to hit that sub button, ring that bell, and also give us a like if you can. Appreciate it very much, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out for now. Bye.